Mark Workman has worked for Sony, Time Warner, and the Disney Company. Now he's doing what millions of others are doing, working for himself, helping others through his Kickspark Your Career company. Mr. Workman is helping his clients find their fulfillment as they move into new careers. Mark, welcome to LA Business Today.
Great to be here.
I like the play on the title of your company, Kickspark. You want to say, you mean Kickstart? And you go, no, it's Kickspark because it's the spark part of it that you're looking for, isn't it?
That's exactly right. And if you think Google and Yahoo and some of the fun names, you don't have to have a serious company name as long as you're able to tell people what it does. And Kickspark really hits the kind of kicking you and helping motivate you, but finding that spark is the other side of it.
Okay. So. Exactly how does the process work? What do you offer your clients?
The process is a 12-week set of steps that we take people through where there are three kind of primary things we do. We help them discover what they want to become, which is the most interesting and sometimes the most difficult for people. Then we help brand them in step 2, and then the third step is we help them with outreach. So discover, brand, and then outreach. Those are the three.
The spark is what I'm most fascinated with because that is where that's critical mass for you.
Right.
Mythologists, philosophers have talked for years about the bliss, about finding that moment of passion, that place where you really want to be, because that's the place where you excel as a human being, both spiritually, morally, and productively, right?
Totally.
And that's what you're after.
That's exactly what we're after.
Are you working with people who are out of work or people who want to suddenly say, you know, it's time for a change?
Well, we tend to have both. In many cases, you'll have people who like what they're doing, but have perhaps lost some of that spark who will come to us. Second of all, we'll have people who've had some type of job dislocation who find themselves out of work. But the most interesting group of people who have always wanted to do more and trying to find where their spark is kind of the best part of Kickspark.
Okay, but let's talk about the people out of work that come to you and say, I need to find some work. High-priced executive, used to work for a bank, for example, needs to either move on in the same industry or find his spark somewhere else. How do you start with a person like that?
Well, the first thing that we'll start with a person is accepting the fact that they've lost their job. As strange as it is, getting someone in the first meeting, it's almost like AA to say, I've been fired, is very hard.
Yeah.
If you ask people, they almost lie to themselves. They'll say, oh, there was downsizing, or this happened, or that. Say you were let go, or say, I'm no longer there. So that step, strangely, has huge emotional value to get them over. Once that's happened, what we try to go back to is what is a phrase we call attributes. What was it about the person that they did really well that is an attribute? And that attribute is theirs, it's not the job's. And when people start to identify, that's what I have, that's what I'm about, then that's the step, then we can help brand them, and then we can do outreach. But until they figure out, wait a minute, this is something that I'm really good at, and you're right, it wasn't Disney's or it wasn't the employer that I used to work at, it's mine. When you helping people claim that, that's the key.
What's your success rate?
Our success rate's quite high. We stay pretty hands-on, so I can't frankly think of anyone who hasn't rediscovered their spark. But that's not to say it doesn't take longer for certain people. Sometimes people are very open to looking at themselves, to making that change. Other folks, it'll take them a little more time to come to that conclusion.
It strikes me that you have to be sort of really well-versed in the human condition, especially in the psychological component of it, because you're actually dealing with what I have taught students at USC to be your emotional intelligence, that reservoir of experience that you've gathered all your life that gets way bigger than your IQ by the end of your life. But it's that area in there that you kind of have to manipulate, have to force that person to go into, maybe part of their subconscious, I don't know, but you bring that out and there it is. There's the spark.
Totally. Well, I love that you looked at it that way. We try to sometimes look at it as hard skills and soft skills. And people quickly want to talk about hard skill. Oh, how many people did you look after? How big was your budget? All those other things. Those are great. Those will be important. The next employer will care. That soft skill, how often did that person motivate others? What did that person bring to a meeting? Were they a connector? Were they a overseer, et cetera? Helping people find their soft skills, as you said, emotional intelligence. that's where the transition happens for most people, because the hard skills are relatively straightforward to learn. You can even retrain yourself. The soft skills, those are much harder.
It's like the light bulb going off, all of a sudden going, oh yeah, I had it all this time. I didn't realize it.
Totally.
Right?
Well, and we were talking ahead of time when I grew up seeing some of your broadcasts, et cetera, and one of the things, if I think about you...
I thought you were a young man. Go ahead.
I am a young man, hopefully. But one of the things...
I watched him when I was only 3 years old. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
One of the things that was interesting is if I think of you as a Kickspark client, your attribute, you have this incredible voice. And this voice is as powerful, and not just as a news thing, but in general entertainment. So one of the things we would try to pull out of you is maybe this person has a career voiceovering movies, like Morgan Freeman has done, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So the key, whether it's you or the person at home, is what are the attributes about the person? And they're not owned by this studio, they're owned by you. And we try to help
Thanks for
people.
that free advice. I didn't pay you $1, and all of a sudden I'm going to go out and get an agent and do voiceover. That's good advice. Do you have people who have discovered something about themselves and find them transitioning into a completely unrelated field?
Yes. And in fact, we had a great case. We had a hard-flying, very successful lawyer who, in a key case, realized she didn't want to argue. She enjoyed arguing, and at that point in her career, she suddenly realized, you know what? If you can't argue, if the idea of attacking other people and trying to pursue on your for your client isn't something you want to do, she had to make a career shift. So luckily, she has a huge writing background, and she also has a historical background, and we've repotted her in something that she's as enthralled about as she was law school 10 years ago.
I imagine that in these hard economic times, your business must be doing pretty well, because there are a lot of people maybe coming to you who find out what you do and say, hey, this guy might really be able to help me. He might uncover secrets I didn't even know about. This is going to help me get a job. First of all, without tipping as to cost or anything, is this an expensive process for people?
Well, what we've tried to do is we have a private coaching module that's more expensive, but where my heart has lied more is in the seminar. We tried to put it together with 20 to 40 people on a seminar basis, because it's much more economical. In fact, it's much more efficient for people, and people then learn from their classmates. So we'd like this to be a mass product, that, and we set it up so it's much more economical than if they were going to try to do private coaching, which is great, but you can't, for most people, you can't look at it
And
that way.
anybody can come to you, right? From you know, high-level executives to, you know, middle management people?
Yep. Well, we have different tiers. We have a black label for kind of the CEO level. The private coaching tends to be the highest level. The seminar tends to be a whole range of people, people that might have recently retired but still want to do something. We have the young guns that are very interested in that next job.
Yep.
And then we have folks maybe in the middle who had the passion and lost it, or a husband and wife have moved to Los Angeles and one is potted and the other isn't.
How do you lose passion? I mean, is it because you're in a job too long, it gets too repetitive, the lawyer just doesn't want to argue anymore? I mean, is that what happens?
I don't know the answer to that. Well, I can tell when someone's lost it. You can just see it in their eyes. You can see it when they come in. When you ask them to describe what they've done, they forget what they were great at.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what causes it. The solution is getting them reconnected with what they were good at originally, again, and finding an attribute that still is relevant in their life. But what causes it? That's a mystery.
Do you have very different people that handle different levels of this so-called malaise in career, or what?
Yes. Well, at the highest level, obviously, there's much more hand-holding with one set of people. But what unifies all of them is trying to find that spark, trying to make sure that people leave Kickspark having discovered themselves.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then I feel like we've done what we're supposed to do.
Okay. All right. So you're looking for your spark. You're looking for your bliss. You find it. Mark helps you find it. And then you have to go find the job, right? So that's sort of like the next step. You brought up an analogy of pitching yourself on the back of a napkin. What did you mean by that?
What I meant for that is the resume is not a good tool for a lot of people. So the concept that if you thought you had the back of a napkin and you had to write real shortly, why hire you, is so important. And people don't know how to do it. If you talk to people who are out of work in the evening at a party and say, okay, tell me in 15 seconds what you want to do, they fumble. They're, well, I've been here before, and it's like, that is your opportunity to make the pitch. Someone on your, the earlier guest had been talking about making a film pitch and being able to get someone to buy it.
Yeah.
It's like you have to be able to make that pitch for yourself.
And first impressions are important, aren't they?
Oh, critically important, because otherwise they're not even going to call you back a second time.
Yeah, because that second meeting is really what you're after, right?
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
So getting that right is important. One of the funny things that we say to people who are out of work is, if you had a business card, because you can't put where you were,
Yeah.
what would it look like? And people will go, I don't know. Well, it should say, again, it should go, this person, it may not have a company name, it should have a feeling of you, it should have a texture, and it's quite challenging to say, here's your business card and you're unemployed.
All right, time for truth-telling.
Okay.
Have you ever had a client that walks in and says, I need help, and you go through the entire analysis process and come up with an idea, and it doesn't work?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. We've definitely had that case. What in most cases is important, though, is another coach that I have a lot of respect in this area said, most people spend more time planning their vacation than planning their careers.
That's me.
That was you? In fact, a good question. How much time did you ever spend on your career?
Yeah.
Probably very little. Helping people, it's time well spent in most cases, and in most cases we'll get you close to the target. We have a high rate of getting you smack dab, but most of this time doing this will be beneficial for you. So very few people look back. My mom owned a weight loss center, and someone would come in and say, I want to lose 100 pounds. Well, if she got 60 pounds off of them, she changed their eating habits, whatever, most people felt like, okay, that was a terrific thing.
Yeah.
I think in most cases we get to 60, 70, or 80. Oftentimes we get to the goal, but if not, I haven't had a case where we've gotten 20 pounds or we've caused someone to get sick yet.
All right.
Knock on wood.
Well, knock on my head, that's where you knock on. I have a feeling that the teacher, in your case, is the person who learned all this or got to this level of understanding, this nirvana of sorts, by making your own change. You worked for Disney, you worked for Sony, and now you decided to leave the man and start out on your own. Did you apply some of these techniques on yourself?
Well, yes. Actually, what was funny was my wife, after having seen me reinvent myself,
Yeah.
said, you kind of owe it to other people to show them what this, how this works. So
A wise woman?
a wise husband to listen to her.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You should change your name to Mark Workman, because that's actually what you're all about. Mark Workman, though, from Kickspark Your Career. Thanks very much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're watching LA Business Today.